Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates. Interviews co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. My name is Cheryl Daniels, and I'm your moderator, and I would like to introduce the candidates for the Madison Common Council, District 15. David Ahrens, Daniel Guerra, and Hawk Sullivan. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer an initial question that serves as an opening statement. I will then ask questions that alternate as to which candidate will go first, with answers up to 2 minutes each. Each candidate will then have 1 minute for a closing statement. So you will have 3 minutes to give an opening statement which answers the following question. What educational, vocational, or civic experience do you have which qualifies you for this office, and why are you running for the Madison Common Council? Mr. Ahrens.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks to the League and to City Channel for sponsoring this kind of forum. I'm running for office because I've been a lifelong advocate for working people and for the neighborhoods that I've lived in. Many years ago, 30 years ago or so, I started my career working for the County Municipal Employees Union and did so for the next 10 years. During that same time, I went to graduate school and got a master's degree in labor economics. Following my work with AFSCME, I then started working in public health and worked in public health, particularly at the School of Medicine and Public Health, for the next 15 years. Much of my work during that time was with local governments, working on preventing chronic disease, particularly for kids and for very older adults. This lifetime of being a strong advocate for things that I feel are right and that can really improve the whole of a community are really what's important to me. I've worked for my neighborhood association. I've worked in city campaigns and national campaigns. I chaired the Obama campaign's East Side effort, East Side Progressives in the last campaign, as well as working on the recall effort. So I think really I have a lifetime of commitment that prepares me for this and that takes me to this next step. I feel I'm ready to do this because I retired over the summer, and now I'll have the time and the opportunity to really put what's needed into being a city council member.
Thank you. Mr. Guerra.
I'm running for the District 15 alderman seat because of the values that I grew up with. The values of honor, appreciation, and respect. You know, I grew up with a commitment to public service. And it started when I was a Boy Scout and an Eagle Scout, and with a very basic project of re-landscaping St. Denis as that project. When I was in high school and on my way to graduate, I became part of the Latino Student Association and worked to close the achievement gap for all minority students in the city. And I continued my commitment to public service. I started a business. I got involved with the creation of Nuestro Mundo Community School Project as a co-founder. I got involved with the business community as a co-founder for the Small Business Advisory Council. I've been a member of the Chamber's Board of Directors for the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce. And my commitment is strong today. I am a member of the Board of Directors for Community Shares of Wisconsin. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for NARAL Pro-Choice Wisconsin Foundation, which is an organization that fights to maintain a woman's right to choose. And I'm the Vice Chair for the City of Madison's Community Development Authority. You know, I think in this race we're going to talk about what the needs of the district are, and I believe that we're going to have a discussion about the type of housing that we want to have over the next couple of years, and how we're going to balance the proposition of infill development and how we're going to restore aging housing stock. And I, for one, propose that we reinforce the value of our aging housing stock through programs like a small cap TIF program. But I also think we have to talk about creating jobs. And I think that involves economic development. So when we look at Cottage Grove Road redevelopment and we look at Royster Clark redevelopment, that's what's important to the east side of Madison, as well as Highway 51 redevelopment and maintaining and developing a stronger presence on East Washington Avenue. But all this doesn't happen without the important participation of our labor. And, you know, I'm a strong advocate for public unions. I know my grandpa was a union bricklayer on the union bricklayer board. My dad was a union employee for 33 years before he retired. My brother's a union member. My cousin's a union member. The kids that I grew up with and the sons of my treasurer are union members. It's in my guts. And so I think what happened at the Capitol in 2011 was appalling. But I believe that through your position as a city alder, we can enforce and reinforce the security of our public employee unions. I also think that they're the key to delivering quality services that the city has. You know, the quality drinking water that we appreciate, making sure that we don't have manganese in it, looking at the streets that we drive on every day and making sure that we've got the highest quality streets, and looking at a quality bus system and a force of public safety such as the police department and the fire department. Without these, we won't have a great city, and together we can make a great city. That's why I'm running.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
I should have done that one while Daniel was talking. So I grew up on the east side of Madison. I went to Lowell, Marquette, and then East High School. And I have a degree from, I'll still call it MATC for a while, but Madison College. About 5 years ago, I opened the Jade Monkey, which is smack dab in the middle of District 15. And during that time, I really enjoyed the neighborhood, so I bought a home there. And subsequently, during the time recently, walking around, I have found out that the neighborhood and the people in District 15 share my same belief. And that is that we have to maintain the quality city services we have. And it's amazing how many teachers or people who are related to teachers or work at schools that you come across. It's simply amazing. 10 years ago, I opened Hawks on State Street, and during that time, and over the last 10 years, I've been involved in many organizations that revolve around the area downtown. And those are vending oversight committees, a city committee. I'm currently on the BID, which is a Business Improvement District, the executive board on that. I am the vice president of the Madison Originals, which is a group of locally owned restaurants to combat corporate restaurants in the area. I'm the president of the Madison Soccer Association. We created that to keep our money more locally and not have it go to the rest of the state. And so I've been involved in many organizations that deal with budgets. I co-created the Cars on State event that happens annually on State Street to bring more families downtown, to show that the downtown is a family-friendly place. And so I want to take those relationships that I've built with city staff and other leaders in the area and focus on the neighborhood on the east side that I am going to raise my family. I'm expecting a kid in July, my first, and it has made me only realize these things that we take for granted when we're kids, like clean beaches and parks and access to the bus system. These are really important to me. Things I took for granted when I was a kid, I realize now that I wasn't necessarily lucky, that there was an actual plan for these things. And the city of Madison and the leaders in the city of Madison decided this was important for everybody to have, even the least fortunate. And so I want to be a part of that plan going forward and help facilitate the needs and desires of the east side, District 15. So.
Okay. So we're going to start on questions that each of you will have 2 minutes to answer. What do you believe is the most important issue specifically for your district, and how do you intend to work on it? Mr. Guerra.
Sure. So over the last couple of years, one of the most significant issues has been really redevelopment of Royster Clark. So Royster Clark is 26 acres of contiguous land within the city, the largest available plot for development. And really through a process of the neighborhood associations and political leadership and the industry coming to the table to talking about what the future was going to be. And so I think there is a plan now that has been developed and many people and many stakeholders have bought into. And so I think executing that plan is going to be important. So they've got a fantastic developer that's part of it. Finding a quality housing developer is going to be part of that plan. But I think more broadly, we talk about kicking off redevelopment of the Cottage Grove Road corridor, and I think that's going to be important. And more broadly, as you go out, you think about the botanical gardens and the regional effect that it has. And so when you tie in, prospective plans for expanding the garden and having more than 250,000 people come through it, they're going to go and want to get something to eat. And right now there's a Michael's and there's a couple other stores. But you think about the possibility when we redevelop Cottage Grove Road, and think about the commercial opportunities when the Royster plan is really implemented. That's going to open up and create many more opportunities and many more jobs. And so I think then really it's going to come to developing a more broad housing strategy of what do we want to see within District 15. Over the last 10 years, there's less owner-occupied housing in the 15th District than there was 10 years ago. And so we need to ask ourselves, what do we want within our part of the city? So that's what I'm looking to do and what I'm looking to act on.
All right. Mr. Sullivan.
Well, the Royster Clark development is important for that area, but my personal experience knocking on doors is that the most important thing I come across is maintaining the quality city services that we currently have. And they're worried about it because for the last 2 years, we've had a governor who has squeezed our city government budget so tight that becomes an issue. And over and over and over again, I hear people talking about they just want to maintain what we have. The things that we take for granted, they want to maintain those things, and they think they're important. And truthfully, they're willing to pay for it. So while redevelopment is great, and I agree with those, and I think it's important to help, advocate for that and facilitate those things, the neighborhood associations have done a lot of work over the last 5 years, and most of it, it's a fantastic plan. And as an alder, I'm simply there to listen to what they want and what they desire and advocate for those things at the city level. And I think that number one on their priority list is maintaining the quality city services they have. Number two would be, obviously, with that, was redevelopment of Royster Clark, but also just keeping the neighborhood safe, secure, and those are all city services that we provide. And we need to maintain those, number one. That's the number one priority of the area that I have experienced.
All right. Mr. Ahrens.
Yeah, I think Royster Clark is certainly important. It's a very highly visible project. There was a great level of community involvement in its development over the past few years, but now it's really dormant. I agree that the important area here is maintaining quality services. But I think the real issue here that we're going to face is while it's important to maintain quality services, the city cannot keep increasing taxes because we're revenue capped, and the people who I intend to represent have very limited incomes. So I think the question is, how do we apportion the resources of the city? I really take issue with the direction that the city has been in for a number of years, where the focus has been almost entirely on developing downtown to the exclusion of everything else. We have a $40 million library downtown, while the library in our district is completely overused. It has deteriorated enormously over the past 10 years. And we need a new library. And that goes for other areas as well. When you really look at the entirety of the city, the real development that's occurred is downtown, and that's it. Any place outside of downtown has really been done mostly through the philanthropy of the Goodman brothers, building a pool and a recreation center. So I think we really need to take a look at that, and I think that's what the community is interested in, how we get our fair share of city resources.
Thank you. So now, what do you believe is the most important and pressing issue for the city as a whole, and how do you believe the city should tackle that issue? Mr. Sullivan.
Well, truthfully, our district is not much different than the whole city as a whole, in a sense that I think that the whole city, and I don't know because I haven't knocked on doors on the west side or downtown. We'll hear from other alders about that, but I think they want to maintain, and this is kind of repetitive, but they like what they have, and they don't want that to go away. And It's important that when you're looking at tight budgets, it's important that your values are in the right place and your priorities in the right place. And that comes from who you are and where you grew up and how you came to those. And what you consider important and your constituents consider important, they'll let you know. And I think that as a city as a whole has to look at smart growth, and you can't always do what you want to do. And you have to maintain what we have while looking at economic growth in a smart way. So the balance is important, and I think that's what I have the ability to do, is to look at those budgets and decide where the priorities lie and decide what projects are important at this moment. Things might change a year from now or 2 years from now. So.
Okay, Mr. Ahrens.
I think some of the major issues facing the city are a state government which is hostile to cities as a whole, and probably even more so to Madison in particular. And I think this is represented by almost a vanishingly small share of state revenue that comes into the city in terms of state aids. So we have to make up for that. I think there's generally a real gap between the values that Madison has and that the state government has, and I think that's important. I think one of the things that Madison is considered, that is considerate of, but the state has no consideration of, is the issue of poverty and people who are low-income individuals. We want to deal with that. We want to deal with that effectively, or in the broad sense, not just jobs, but jobs and housing and education. I think the state has complete disregard for that. So I think the challenge that the city has is, how do we address those problems in the face of a state government that's really turning its head aside to facing the issues which not just face Madison, but all across the state. And I think how we deal with that and how we deal with that effectively and compassionately is the issue that's ahead of us.
Thank you. Mr. Guerra.
I think the city's funds are incredibly important. I think the mayor's done a very good job of making us take a look at how we spend money in the city and how we tax and levy money in the city. And I think our fair share revenue formulas from the state are important. But I think that, I've always been a believer that enabling somebody to have a good job is really the way that we help people. And I think we can do that through proactive economic development, pairing it up and making sure that we're marshaling services from the Community Services Commission as well as the Community Development Block Grant. So I think that's important. But we have a resource in the city that very few cities have, which is the Neighborhood Indicators Project. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to look at each part of the city and to see what the level of education looks like and what the income looks like and the housing values and public safety, and start to really draw a picture to see where the disparities are. And I believe in parity. I believe that the east side of Madison should be equal to downtown, the downtown should be equal to the west side, and we should all be growing together. And so I can tell you from my experience within the Community Development Authority, a city's got an obligation to step in when we see neighborhoods sliding. And I believe that when we look and set our priorities as a city, we want to grow. And so identifying neighborhoods that are sliding should be our priority. Developing an educated workforce should be a priority. Every student that graduates from Madison School should be able to find a job that pays a living wage. That's how we combat these issues.
Thank you. What do you believe is your strongest personal quality that distinguishes you from the other candidates, which you believe will assist you in being the best person to hold this seat? Mr. Ahrens.
I have so many qualities, I don't know where to begin. Mostly my modesty, I think, is the thing. I think first, as I mentioned at the outset, is more than 30 years of experience as an advocate, whether that's advocating for working people or advocating for communities that are working on improving the health of their community. I think that's really key in terms of working with the media, working with a variety of communities, building coalitions, and so on. These are all skills which are important and have really been honed over 30 years. The second thing is my work while I was working for the labor union and also later directing a public health program, working for the union, I worked extensively on municipal finance issues. So I come into this really knowing how to read a municipal budget and understanding the structure of public finance. And for that reason, I think, unlike many freshman council members, I think I would be qualified to be on the Board of Estimate. Second, I managed a large public health program at UW. It was a program of over $1 million a year to do program evaluations of public health programs. And that just not only taught me about the intricacies of budgeting and planning and personnel and the usual stuff of program management, but also really about how do we evaluate whether public health, any kind of public program works. So I've become very sensitive to the notion of really seeing whether programs are effective and that should be evidence-based.
Okay. Mr. Guerra.
Well, I believe that a lot of the skills that well, first off, let me tell you, I'm working on becoming likable. And so I realize it's part of campaigning. But in all seriousness, I really think that something that I bring to the table is that I've got a lot of experience working with many different stakeholders. And you think about that when I talked a little bit about my resume, when you talk about working to close the achievement gap within the Madison public schools and working with the community of color to serving on the board of directors for the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce. And so you go and you're dealing with some of the 40 most influential business owners here in Madison and or people that run companies, and you've got to figure out how you're all going to work together to really advance a cause. And so I think that's important. And you know, you get a different view of how to advance an idea and how you're going to work with people. And you know, I think in my early years in life, I would have just thrown an idea on the table and said, hey, we're going to go do this. And now I understand that if you want to really start to get things done, it's about talking with a lot of people and building a snowball that is really going to affect change. And it requires a lot of people to buy into a process. And that's something that I didn't appreciate early on that I've got a much greater appreciation for today. But I can tell you that I'm not afraid to go out on a limb. And I believe that one of the things that we face here as a community is having a bigger and broader vision for what we can do. I think that we artificially limit ourselves when we think about finances. Finances are important, but we have to think about what we can do, and that's what one of my core beliefs right there. So I think that's what I have to offer.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
Well, you know, I grew up a poor kid in Madison, but I didn't feel poor though. I mean, I had access to so many things that I just assumed every kid had access to, but really they don't if you go to other cities. And I'm hoping that I can give that same opportunity to all the kids here of any kind of background. And I strike the right kind of balance of that's where I came from and that's the core of who I am. And knowing that and trying to give back to those who are least fortunate so they can have the same kind of experience and maybe become successful in whatever they want to do also. I'm a progressive small business owner, and what that means is that while business is important to me and you know you have to make money to stay in business, but how you make your money, you know, are you doing it in a responsible way? Do you treat your employees correctly, you know, with respect, and do you pay them, you know, the right kind of wage, and do you offer health insurance? Do you think about the long term and not just the dollar you make today? You know, as a small business owner, I was for a raise in the minimum wage. I was for paid sick leave. I'm for progressive issues that may hurt me as a small business owner today, but in the long run, do well for not only me, but everybody. And so I think I strike that right balance of where I came from and where my values are, and also being a business owner and knowing where to look for in tight budgets, where your priorities lie.
Okay. At this time, you each have 1 minute for a closing statement. Mr. Guerra.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this together. I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to share about a little bit of information with you about who we are and what we stand for. You know, we didn't have an opportunity to answer all the tough questions that I'm sure you're interested in. But I think, at the end of the day, what's most important is what we're going to do to better the district that we represent in the city that we live in. And I can tell you that, my focus is incredibly clear. I'm focused on making sure that we have affordable housing, that we've got a quality housing program in the 15th district in the city of Madison, that we've got senior housing, and we're looking to take care of our community's more senior members, that we look at economic development, because having a good job is the key to improving your life and maintaining a high quality of life and being able to contribute in this great city. And so I'm looking forward to your support on February 19th in the primary. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sullivan.
So I want to thank the league and David and Daniel for coming too. This is a great learning experience for all of us. And my job as an alder is to listen to what you want me to do and advocate for, and your needs and desires. And through knocking on doors and talking to many of you, it has only reinforced my same belief. And so I hope to take that, what you have taught me at the doors, and advocate for that at the city level, and use my relationships that I have built over the last 10 or 15 years to help facilitate those things. So I'm hoping to get your vote on February 19th, and I want to thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Ahrens.
I think what affects the district certainly affects the city, and what affects the city affects the district. And though we're elected by District 15, we'll all still be part of the body of the City Council. And I think to be a member of the City Council from the start, from day one, it's important to be effective and to be knowledgeable and experienced. And I think I bring those qualities to the job, that I have many years of experience and I have the know-how to do the job and be effective, both in terms of city issues, but also be an advocate for every constituent need. Representing individual constituents as well as representing the entire district is something that I'm ready to do. Thank you.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank the candidates for being with us, and I'd also like to thank the viewers for watching and remind everyone that primary election day is Tuesday, February 19th. Please vote. If you'd like more information about voting procedures or obtaining a copy of the League's Candidates Answers publication, call the League office at 232-9447 or visit our website at lwvdanecounty.org. On behalf of Madison's City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.